and maybe how you guys executed your game plan.
Well, obviously not very well. I mean, we faced probably definitely the best defense we faced all year. You got to give a lot of credit to Wisconsin, but we also, just weren't able to sustain drives, stay on the field. We struggled on third down. We struggled on early downs, getting in the third and short and medium, which put us into third and longs, which wasn't what we wanted to be in. Weren't able to execute there to stay on the field. I mean, obviously it was our worst game of the year offensively. We got to go back and try and fix what we've got to fix, starting with me, our coaches, the players out there doing their job. So it was, like I said, you got to give Wisconsin credit. They got a really good defense, a good front, but we've got to find a way to execute better.
And Brett had talked post game about spending this open week, finding a way to maximize the roster. Maybe just determine some guys who are at 4 games or not at 4 games. What's that look like offensively for you?
Well, we've got a couple of guys that haven't played 4 games, some freshmen that we'll probably start to bring up this week and look at a little bit. We've already brought some freshmen with Josh and Pat Bryant right there. Another receiver would be Miles Scott that's going to come down and work with us a little bit and see if there's a situation where we start to put him in the game a little bit. But, probably the young guys that we're going to play, we've already bumped up and have already started to see playing time. So, we'll keep moving forward with those guys and developing those young guys.
Thank you, Tony.
Hey, Coach, nice seeing you. After the game on Saturday against Wisconsin, Coach Bielema kind of mentioned that you guys kind of started to look at Art a little bit more after the Maryland game. What did you kind of see in those couple of weeks and reps that he got that made it feel like Brandon was still your guy?
Well, Brandon was still in there making the throws, making good decisions with the football. Art was also coming along and developing. Art brings a little bit different personality and character out to the field as far as just that a little bit more of a leadership right there. But you've got 2 guys really that I feel like are Division I type of players that you can go out there and win with. And so if all of a sudden you're struggling a little bit about out there, a lot of people want to start talking about quarterbacks and who should be playing. So I feel good about both those guys. Obviously, BP got dinged up and Art went in, and Art did some good things, and he also could have done some things a little bit better. And we'll keep working on that, obviously, every week.
And then to follow up, I guess in these 2 weeks of practice, are you open to making a change at the quarterback position, or how do you evaluate the quarterback position in these 2 weeks?
Well, the first thing is we'll evaluate them every day. But the number one thing with the quarterback spot, and I've been doing this a long time, at the end of the day, if there's going to be a change made at the quarterback position, the head coach is going to have a lot to say with it. So he'd be definitely the guy you guys want to ask that question a little bit more than me.
Hey, Tony, how difficult is it to find continuity in the offense when you have just kind of some unlucky plays where, guys get banged up as far as the quarterback position goes?
Well, I mean, injuries are part of football. Continuity is awesome, especially up front at the quarterback spot, at the wideout spot, everywhere, running back spot. If you can have guys out there that are all staying on the field and staying healthy, that's the ultimate thing to have. And you see it in the NFL, you see it in college. But you got to deal with it, and that's life. That's part of football. So when guys go down, whether it's in the middle of a game or in the middle of a week or in the middle of a series, you got to deal with it, and you got no choice. So if that happens in the future at any position, we got to be ready to roll. And it's always a next guy up mentality.
Hey, Tony, both quarterbacks had their struggles against Wisconsin. Just what do you feel is maybe missing in the passing game through 7 weeks?
Well, it's you look at the Wisconsin game, it's a little bit of a lot. Like I said, they've got a really good defense. They've got a good front 7. They were able to put a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks, which hinders the passing game. They're pretty good in the back end, and we're able to stay on top of our receivers and make them a lot of contested throws. They got a good defense, and we got to do better against it. We got to protect the quarterback better. Quarterback could make some better decisions with the football and some better throws, and then the wideout's got to make some plays. So it's not just one thing. It's kind of a little bit of everything. And it obviously did not go well on Saturday against the Wisconsin defense that plays really well.
I think your first 2 possessions against Wisconsin, all pass attempts on every play. Was that just a determination that maybe hit them with that, knowing how good they are stopping the run?
Well, you know what? Yeah. We weren't going to just go out there and say, hey, we're just going to try and run the ball down their throats. I think statistically they were either first or second in the country in run defense. We had a plan to go out there and throw the ball early and try and get some things going there and execute. It didn't go the way we wanted to. And, that was our plan going into it. And, it didn't work out the way we wanted to, but we had plans of throwing the ball early on them.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach, when we talk to the players, to a man, they all say they just needed to play better and make more plays. But is there also a constant evaluation of the scheme, the play design, and some of the play calls?
Oh, always. I mean, the first thing I look at, especially after a game like that, is what could I have done better? How could I have put our guys in a better situation? Is there some different type of schemes or plays that we can give them an opportunity? Obviously, like I said, Wisconsin's got a good defense. I mean, you're not just going to have guys running around wide open on them. But anytime we go back and evaluate this week, what can we do to get the ball in our tight ends' hands more? What can we do to get them some easy catches? What can we do to get in Isaiah's hands moving forward? And then also some shots down the field. But a lot of what happened on Saturday had to do with, Wisconsin's defense and also with our lack of execution.
I know you're not going to be a spread offense. It's just not who you are, but are there some more maybe spread concepts in the passing game and combinations of routes that you think can help these guys get some separation? Yeah.
And, we got into empty there a few times and spread it out a little bit. I think we can keep doing that at times. I think that helps us. The big thing we got to make sure is we're not doing anything to put the ball in jeopardy. Knock on wood, the best thing that we did on Saturday is we didn't have a turnover. A lot of times when you're struggling a little bit, you throw some turnovers on top of that, and that's when it can really get ugly. So we still got to always lock in and concentrate on ball security, but we've got to get the ball out on the perimeter. We've got to get the ball in our playmakers' hands, along with being able to run the football.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Hey, Tony, maybe this is a tough week to ask after the game, but just as you enter this bye week, what do you evaluate where your offense is at through 7 games?
Well, I mean, I get the best thing, you got to look at all 7 games. I'm not saying we're leading the country because obviously we're not, but we've done some really good things this year. It just makes it hard when you're going to go look at it on a bye week right after that Wisconsin game, which it was our toughest game. I mean, it was our toughest defensive opponent. I think we played our poorest out there as far as execution, and that combination made it for a nightmare of a game. And, so that leaves you just sick in your stomach, and you go to look at it, and you got to make sure you look at all 7 games because we have done a lot of good things. And we've taken care of the football. We've run the football. We've made a strong effort to it. We still got to keep improving in the passing game, but you got to make sure you go back and look at all 7 games and not just let the one game, define what you're doing right now.
And then if I could get one more, I know Brian Hightower was, injured a little bit early on. Where's he fall at kind of in your wide receiver order? And is there maybe a disconnect with him getting more chances on the field?
Well, he's back in practice. He's practicing right now. It's just the guys that we feel like give us the best opportunity are going to be on the field. Brian's pretty much 100% healthy. He's in there in our rotation and practicing right now. And, another thing about that Wisconsin game, I think we had 52 snaps. So when you have that low of snaps, a lot of times some guys that maybe would have gotten some snaps end up not getting snaps in the game. So, Brian's back, he's doing well, and he's available to play.
Thank you, Tony.
Hey, Coach, I kind of wanted to follow up on this as well. I don't know what your philosophy is on kind of a 2 quarterback system. You obviously haven't done it at all this year. Where do you kind of stand on that in terms of what you think on a 2 quarterback system, if that's what it came to, I guess?
You know what? I've never been a huge 2 quarterback guy. I've never, that I can remember, been anywhere in my career where we're just going to go with 2 quarterbacks. Typically, if you're trying to go with 2 quarterbacks, you feel like you don't even have one. I think you got to make a decision on the quarterback and go with it. I'll reiterate, the quarterback's a unique position. That's going to be a heavily big decision that's going to come down to a lot on the head coach and then our staff right there. But, again, we've talked about it. When you win, the quarterback gets a lot more credit than he probably deserves. And when you lose, especially you lose the way we did on Saturday, quarterbacks get a whole lot more blame. So, until coach says something different, right now we're a 1 quarterback system, and he's going to make the decision on who plays.
And then if I could get one more, after the game on Saturday, a couple of guys kind of spoke about, I guess, Art kind of having this juice and bringing a spark to the huddle and to the offense. Where's Brandon kind of at right now with that, and his, I guess, communicative abilities? You guys spoke about that a lot in training camp, how much he improved with that.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have been, if you've been around BP and you've been around Art, they're just two different people. And one of Art's big high assets is his personality and his natural outgoing leadership and his juice right there. And we've talked about BP. It's one of the things that he struggles with, just his natural personality right there. That's not him. And he keeps working on it, but they're two totally different guys. And so when BP comes in, one of the things that he does bring is he brings a lot of that juice to the table because that's his natural personality.
Hey, Tony, I've got an off the wall question. I realize I don't think I've seen you without the hat that you're wearing right now, unless I'm mistaken. And I'm wondering if there's anything special to it, or you just like it, or you're protecting the dome there.
You know what? No, I wear a hat a lot. I've got a couple Illinois camo hats in there. I like my camo hats. Trent gave me this one and one other one. So there's two different colored ones. And unless I'm out recruiting or something, I don't know. I played a lot of baseball growing up. I've always kind of been a hat guy. Plus obviously I don't have any hair. It helps sometimes keeping the dome covered from the sun.
All right. I noticed the camo thing and I didn't know if there was something to it.
I got two of them. So I kind of mix them up.
There's no gamer, right? Is there one that's a gamer?
There is until, we win and it becomes the game one until the next one. And then when we don't win that next week, then I shoot that hat down. So I'll rotate hats a lot.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys. Have a good day.
Thanks, Tony.
Thanks.
A little bit.
A lot of things. Obviously, there's not any one area when you give up the yardage that we did. Sometimes it was misfits. Sometimes it was just playing with improper technique, and sometimes they made a play and broke a tackle and was able to get some more yards. So definitely got to shore up the run game. Make sure that we got the proper matchups out there and schematically are doing the things that are advantageous to getting us in the right spot to be able to stop the run.
What's the most important part of this open week for you guys as a defense?
Just to continue to improve, really focusing on the fundamentals and techniques of playing good defense, getting on and off blocks, making tackles and leveraging the football properly, proper footwork and coverage. Going back to the basics and improving as football players, not just defensively or schematically.
Thanks, Ryan.
Hey, Ryan, I guess I'm just curious maybe how you look at that Wisconsin game where, you get a couple turnovers, both with Kirby but then, Wisconsin has the ball for 43 minutes. Just what's the bigger picture view of maybe that game?
It was the fact we couldn't get off the field, like you just alluded to the time of possession. Obviously we love the two turnovers. But at the same time, in games like that where early that they're sort of what they wanted to do was run the football and maintain possession and keep us on the field. So when you have opportunities on third down to get off the field, you got to take advantage of those. We got at the second half, it just looked like we were tired at times. And that happens, I think they ran the ball over 60 times. So we got to be better. Got to be better there for sure.
Just with Kirby, 2 more takeaways, 6 in the last 5 games. Have you had a player go on maybe that kind of run like that before?
Not at the safety spot. We had a guy named Cale Garrett at Missouri who through 4.5 games had like some crazy, like 3 touchdowns and 3 picks and a couple forced fumbles. So yeah, he is on a good run. Hopefully we keep it going, and he's still got a lot of areas to improve. So I'm happy with his growth, but he's still got a lot of potential.
I guess just maybe one follow up on Kirby, just to have him in that free safety spot, maybe the last line of defense, and just to have been as consistent as he's been over the last few games. What does that do for your defense overall?
It helps. Obviously, the turnovers are huge. It gets you off the field and puts the ball back in the offense's hand. But just him being able to roam back there and get people down as well, it can limit explosive plays and limit the home run either passes or runs that that offenses can create. So he's like I said, he's been doing a good job in the post, and he can continue to improve and get better.
Thank you.
Hey, Coach. Obviously, Jake went out again. How do you feel like the other guys stepped up, particularly like Tariq Barnes? I know I believe he had the forced fumble, and he's been pretty consistent. It seems like in that, I guess, stepping into that role.
Yeah, I mean, those, Jake had been out, for the last couple of games, and so, there wasn't necessarily a drop off for guys that hadn't played before. So those, Coach Boo does a good job of cross training those guys, play Mike or Will. And obviously hate to see that happen to Jake. He's been a pillar of the program, since he stepped foot on campus, and has been great in the locker room and has played great football for us when he's been available. So hate to see that for him and his family. It's the nature of the game sometimes, and for us as a unit, it's got to be next man up mentality, and having Jake's back that way and playing up to our standards. And so those guys, like I said, they've got a lot of playing experience here lately because Jake's been out. And so it's just another opportunity for them to get more reps, get more experience, and try to put us in position to help us win games.
Ryan, I know you said you're working this week on fundamentals, but at least for you as coaching staff, are you already game planning for Penn State, starting that scheme, or do you kind of wait until next week for that?
You start taking a peek at it. Start doing some early scouting. You also do some self scouting during the bye week, just to assess where we are defensively. What our tendencies are, where we can improve, and then obviously get a jump start on the Penn State.
And I know you weren't happy with Wisconsin, the result, but you look at 4 straight games with 24 points or less allowed. Do you feel like that's given your team a chance to win from a defensive standpoint?
No, hadn't been enough. It just hasn't been enough. Obviously, the wins have not come from those performances, and that's our job, is to help us go win a game, and we haven't done that. Regardless of what the score is, that we haven't done enough defensively.
Hey, Ryan, Brett had talked after the game about using this week to maybe find ways to maximize the roster. It sounded like maybe that there could be a chance to see some younger guys. I know you've kind of tinkered around a little bit already, but what's that look like for you this week in terms of the balance of maybe seeing who else you have, but also understanding you still have 7 or 5 games left?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, we're going to do a lot of self scout and a lot of fundamental work in practice, and if that leads to a couple roster moves or tweaks from a personnel standpoint, then that's what that means. I don't know what that means for the offense or special teams, right? But I just know for us defensively, through the self scout and through some evaluations, in assessing where we can grow or get better, we'll adjust accordingly.
And I guess if I could, I know we've talked a lot about Kirby, but I know you've mentioned like this was a guy who was a wide receiver at times. And when did you identify that, hey, maybe this could be a guy that I could really work with to help take that step? And what does that specifically look like to get him to where he is?
Well, in the springtime, he's the same athlete he was a year ago. You know what I mean? So in the spring, I saw a long, rangy athlete that could get in and out of breaks, that had natural ball skills, just didn't necessarily know how to play the position. And so through reps and through countless meetings and questions, like he's a guy that asks a lot of questions, and you want that as a coach, right, to make sure that you're on the same page, and kind of honing in on specifics of what he needs to pay attention to. You started seeing a growth pattern there. And then he's just been a guy that hasn't been afraid to make a mistake. So that's allowed him to go make plays that other people aren't making, right, or hadn't made. So when you got a guy like that, you got to take advantage of it. And so he's been able to provide sparks for us, and obviously creating turnovers and limiting explosive plays. And so, like I said, and he's just learning. He's still learning the position, and what that position means within the scheme of the defense. So, sky's the limit for Kirby as long as he continues to, remain humble and continue to work the way he's worked up to this point, because he's just scratching the surface from a potential standpoint.
Cool. Thanks, Ryan.
About Kirby, he's not afraid to make a mistake, and that's maybe allowed him to make plays that others maybe haven't. What is it about that mentality, or is that maybe, I guess, what you want your entire defense to adopt at some point here, not just maybe this season, but in the future?
Yeah, I mean, that's, I think it's, someone asked me a similar question last week, just on how some guys can or how some guys can't. You pull the trigger, as I've said in the past. Some of it's innate, right? Some guys are just more aggressive than others. Some guys it's a learned habit. Sometimes it could be previous cultures or previous coaching staffs that react differently to mistakes being made or not being made. It could be a whole host of things that leads to a player either being aggressive or being hesitant. I'm always of the mindset, I'd much rather have to tell you to slow down than to speed up. If your preparation has been done the right way and gone through the proper steps, then that should give you confidence and freedom to go out there and play fast and to be aggressive. And so I think Kirby has allowed his preparation and his practice habits have allowed him to be confident, which in turn allows him to be aggressive and to react off of what he is seeing on game days.
Are there other guys you feel like, I guess, have adopted that same mentality of pulling the trigger, not being afraid to make a mistake?
Yeah, I mean, I think Sidney Brown is another guy, specifically in my room, that pulls the trigger pretty frequently. Now he's playing a different position, so he's not in the same scenarios or situations that Kirby's in, but he's got that same, pull the trigger first, ask questions later mentality. And throughout the spring, it got him in trouble sometimes, and so you had to sort of, say, hey, in this call, you can't really do that, Sid. You know what I mean? But he's another guy that's been ultra productive for us, that is in the right spot at the right time and plays tough and physical, and because of his preparation, he's allowed to play free that way.
Thanks, Coach.
Coach,
Appreciate you.
Coach, you haven't got the results you want, but the defense has been better this year. The fans are asking, with Coach Bielema's background being as a defensive coach, what the dynamic there is between the two of you, and how much freedom he gives the coordinators and how much input he has as the head coach on the defense.
Yeah, I think one thing that's been special about Coach B is he's not like a micromanager. Like he trusts in his hiring process. He trusts what he sees, and he has put together, specifically on our side of the ball, a lot of capable coaches. We've got Andy Boo was a play caller and spent a lot of time as a coordinator. Kevin Kane was just the defense coordinator at SMU, who has done a great job there. And then we've got young coaches, and Coach Jameson, who I believe will one day be a coordinator, and Coach Henry, who I believe will one day be a coordinator. So you got plenty of capable guys in there, and he's allowed us to go in there and go to work. Now, obviously, he's the head coach and he's got a defensive background. So if there are things that he sees that he doesn't like, or things that he sees that he feels like we can add to what we're doing, he's not afraid to voice those opinions. And as a staff, we'd be wise to take heed to his direction or his advice. And so it's been a great working environment that way. He's allowed us to sort of evolve throughout the season, and I think that as a result, we've gone through some improvements. Now, obviously, there's going to be hiccups, down the road, and there's going to be plays that you want back. But he has in my opinion, done a good job of balancing, being head coach and trusting your staff to do their jobs, and also, providing input and insight where he sees fit.
Thank you.
Everybody got me? All right. Well, obviously, since we got together on Saturday post game to where we are today, gave our players a couple days off by NCAA rules, just on the bye week, and to have 2 bye weeks, as well as when we start camp with week 0, we had to make some concessions on how much we could work during the bye week. So really, we got Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday available this week. The same thing when we're in bye week 2. So today was the first chance we'd had to be with them about Wisconsin. We reviewed the film early this morning. Offense, defense, special teams, went through the critical plays, the teaching moments there. Obviously, put that to bed earlier this morning, and then went out on the field and was able to get a good work day for our 2 deep, as well as excuse them. And they went in, they got some work with Tank and his crew, and then we had a developmental practice for about 40 minutes, which was really our non-travel crew, as well as the guys that kind of haven't gotten a lot of reps in the games that we played in so far. So from a health standpoint, I do believe we'll have Seth Coleman back with us when we return to play against Penn State. Brandon Peters is probably will be limited, but this week, but should be back with us again next week as it lays out in front of us. And then Jake Hansen still going through some tests. Hopefully, we'll be able to give you some information here sooner than later, today or tomorrow. And then Deuce Spann, unfortunately, tweaked his hamstring last week during practice. Wasn't with us all week, and then looks to be out probably the remainder of this week and possibly next week with a soft tissue injury. So that's really where we're at from an injury standpoint. Thought our guys came out and competed today. Tomorrow will be a little bit of a combination of working on fundamentals and getting better as a football player, and introduction into Penn State, as well as some upcoming opponents. And then we'll do much of the same on Thursday. Bye weeks are a little bit different than normal weeks. During a normal game week, we don't spend a lot of time, or we haven't had coaches out on the road recruiting, but I was out the last couple of days with a couple of coaches. We'll go out towards the end of this week as well to go out and do recruiting for 22, 23, 24, and beyond. So that's kind of a little bit different for us in a bye week versus a game week. But other than that, I'll open up for questions.
Coach, as you mentioned, it's an opportunity to get out on the road and recruit as much as you can. Could you delve a little bit into what the strategy there is, what the game plan is, and what your coaches are going to be selling to the high school kids?
Well, just strategy wise, so you're allowed 68 evaluation days during the fall by NCAA rules. So those days are used strictly just for academic and obviously physical evaluations. You can watch a practice, you can watch a game. It can be just an academic evaluation. The last I was in 4 different states yesterday for me as a head coach. I was with Coach Miller, and we were at Bart Miller. We were spent basically a 36-hour window focusing on mainly offensive line. But then I kept all my coaches back in the office here so that they could do a little bit of self-scout on what we've done and where we're at. They'll be on the road for the majority of all my coaches, at least most of my coaches, other than the 2 coordinators, Ryan and Tony will help me run practice on Thursday. But for the most part, all of our coaches will be out basically in the state and across the country, getting in position Wednesday night. We might do a few evaluation Wednesday practices, but Thursday and Friday, I wanted to give them a full 48-hour window to get in as many evaluations, academic and athletic evaluations. And then there'll be a limited number of us on Saturday that will be out and about. I'll be out Saturday as well, get back late Saturday night before we jump into Penn State eval for Sunday.
Thanks, Coach.
Yep.
Hey, Coach. What I want to ask is just how do you look at when it comes to like Kirby's development? I know everyone talked about his play, but how have you seen him change personality-wise, maybe, or just mature? I know that everyone says he's like, kind of wired, he's lively, but I'd imagine it has to be like some controlled chaos there, maybe, if that makes sense.
Did you say Kirby, James?
Yeah, Kirby.
Kirby Joseph.
Yes.
Just been very impressed with him. Yeah, he's a live wire, but he's a great communicator. Gets a little bit shy. I put him on the radio show last week for a reason. I wanted him to become more comfortable, in front of people and answering questions. I think I'm sure you guys see it, especially in media, right? Like, kids can handle moments like that. Other kids can't. I think there is a direct relationship between how they handle pressure moments and how they handle like media moments, right? So I think that's all kind of tied together at certain points. I think Kirby's play physically has increased because he's become more confident. Hey, I think he's getting told a lot of really good things. I think Ryan's done a really good job with him, coaching up specifics, but they're putting him in a position, and you've just seen him literally grow every game, make plays in one game that he didn't a week before, and it's just continued to move forward. And good news is, obviously, he's a good player now, but he keeps getting better every week.
Brett, I had two questions. One, how do you handle your quarterback position this week during the bye week? And then the other was, you've mentioned on offensive line, you've mentioned Josh Kreutz and Zach Barlev as two kids that have, taken steps in their development. I know offensive line is a developmental position, and younger kids need more time. But are those two kids that you feel like you might be able to take a look at before their four-game redshirt window exits?
Yeah. So first question, quarterback, reps this week. Really excited to be able to obviously work with BP and Art on the things that they have done well and the things they need to do better as we move forward. But then to have some of our developmental guys, Samari got a lot of reps today. A guy that I think as we entered this bye week, we had set up basically the first 7 games. We had made a decision on a group of freshmen that we felt good about trying to get into a 4-game window, based on the NCAA rule to do that. There was another group of guys that we were kind of excited to see where they would grow during that 7 weeks. And then we would get into this bye week, which we're in right now, and kind of make a decision if we wanted to move forward. Barlev, has been on the cusp. A couple of the DBs, couple semi-skilled players, Dylan Rosiak, like guys that we're really making a decision this week if we want to try to work them into this next 3-week window. We knew that in the later part of the season, we would run into more injury issues and need more depth. So that's kind of how we strategize that. In particular, Kreutz, he's already played, even though it was at the tight end position and an extra heavy set. He did play, get in the game. And Barlev has really been on the cusp, really a couple different games that if a game had gone a certain way, you get in and get reps, but just haven't been to that point yet. But I do think he'll probably be closer now than ever before.
Thanks, Brett. I appreciate it.
Yep.
Hey, Coach, I kind of wanted to also ask about the quarterbacks. I asked Tony Petersen about his philosophy on a 2-quarterback system. I don't know yours. Can you share what your opinion is on that?
Yeah, never really experienced it. I think 2 quarterbacks, you mean like 2 quarterbacks playing in the same game?
Yeah, so like using both Art and Brandon, if that's what it kind of came to.
Yeah,
not necessarily in the same play, but what I mean.
No, I think in the system that we've guided to and what we've recruited to, or how we're trying to build for the future, that's not never say never. It's just not a path we would go down. Yeah, I think anytime. Well, opener. The only reason we've used 2 quarterbacks in a game is because of injury, right? So in the Nebraska game, BP got knocked out. Art came in. Art was the quarterback all the way up until we inserted BP back in the lineup, and then BP was in the lineup all the way until this past weekend when he got knocked out and Art came in.
And then I kind of wanted to ask, and sorry if this is stepping on any NCAA toes, but you tweeted yesterday a picture of a bunch of what looked like military helicopters. Where were you? Where were you at? And what was that experience like? I don't really know where you were at. So,
yeah, I think we can. I was actually in Garden City at that point. But what was interesting is I got out. When we were in 4 different states in one day, and you just get out and you see different things. We flew into another place that was looked like it was an airplane burial ground. There was like 40 or 50 airplanes that were just gutted out, sitting by the runways. Kind of an unusual sight you see. So the next stop was Garden City. There we saw the military hop. I actually took a picture of it to send to Luke Ford, just because I knew Luke enjoyed that aspect of it because of his father's history. I also, it was early morning and I hadn't talked to my daughter yet, and she's infatuated by helicopters. So I actually took a FaceTime with her and sent her a picture of that. She was convinced I was getting on it. I assured her I was not, but it's just one of those things you kind of get across. In recruiting, you know, sometimes you don't mind people knowing where you're at, but on the same time, a lot of times you don't want to tell people where you are at, right? So there's a little bit of both.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate it.
Hey, Brett, as you guys as the coaching staff make these decisions on which freshmen or players that could be within those 4 games to gravitate towards, I know you talked a lot about it with Josh when you guys made the decision to go to him, but how do you know when the time is right?
You know, it's little things with each guy, Joey, really, to be quite honest. Just like you guys get to know the players in the media, as coaches, we get to know them. And, you know, sometimes you can tell by their body language, they just feel really confident, feel really good. And you see them do things repeatedly during practice. So you're like, okay, this might become game day reality. You know, there could be, there's been, I know earlier in the year, we were going to play PB in a game, Pat Bryant in a game, and he broke a formation wrong and lined up incorrectly on a Thursday, and Coach McDonald removed him from the plan that week because of that, right? So I think a lot of it, I as a head coach got to feel comfortable, but then a lot of times it does the assistant coach feel like he knows the game plan well enough to be asserted right in the middle of the biggest moment. So it's kind of case by case, and also, you know, for a lot of these guys, like I obviously, you know, the first guy I inserted in the lineup was Josh, right? But I had hand recruited him myself, so I knew a lot about him, right? I knew a lot about. There was 13 of these guys that I'd never met before, right? Like I didn't know them until majority of them came on campus here in the summer, and then in the summer I can't be around them by NCAA rules very much. So it was really just kind of getting used to guys and knowing who they are. I think as we move forward, part of this process is we're just going to know our roster a lot better because we're going to recruit them, and we're going to be in their homes. One of the things that the NCAA does allow us to do is, as I'm going out on the road now in recruiting, I can actually go and visit the homes of kids of our current roster, right? So this week I'm going to work my way south a little bit. So I'm going to try to see a few kids' parents of kids that are on our roster now that I've never met before, or I haven't been in their home. I just think as a head coach, it really helps me understand young men and what they go through if I know their families and I know their homes a little bit better. So it's kind of a double dip and duty of getting as much exposure as I can to not only our recruiting roster, but our current roster as well.
At the risk of a couple of people behind me getting mad, can you maybe assess where the 3 phases of your team are at right now into this open week here?
Offense, defense, special teams?
Yeah.
Well, you know, obviously special teams, we thought coming into the season, just because of, you know, who we have, our 2 specialists, our kicker and our punter, exceptional players, probably be very fortunate if I ever have this kind of talent again, both of them at the same time, just very, very immature as they are, right? You might get a kicker and a punter who are equally as good, but just on different ends of their age or spectrum. So I thought special teams has been something that we've been able to lean on heavily, and they've been able to perform for the most part very, very well, as well as a 4 core group. You know, Kirby Joseph, case in point, was a guy that kind of started off as a special teams player for us, played himself into a role and done really well. This past weekend, Eddie Smith jumped out off the charts as a special teams player and did that. Defensively, there's no doubt in my mind, since the Virginia game to where we are today, they've continued to make steps forward. Obviously, Saturday we gave up some rushing numbers. Part of that is obviously what we did, but also Wisconsin had a huge effect on that by what they were able to execute and get out there and perform and do. But I do like the way the defense has evolved to the players' strengths. I like the way the coaches communicate. I think Ryan's got a good pulse on the strengths and the weaknesses of the program and where we're going. And then on the offensive side, you know, Tony has had multiple, 2 different players or 2 different people to, jump into the starting quarterback position. I think that in itself, I would say our top 3 quarterbacks beyond BP from last spring, which were Deuce, Isaiah and Karan Taylor are now playing other positions. So we literally decimated that quarterback room, brought in Art, brought in RJ. Matt Robinson is obviously still there, brought in Samari Collier. So really, you know, in the infancy of this program, I knew that the quarterback position was going to be a one of high interest, and obviously you have a huge effect, but also one of my biggest concerns, just because we were dealing with a lot of unknowns there. Offensively, the people around it then, right? The quarterback is greatly affected by the people that are around them. So now you have, you know, arguably two of our best wide receiver prospects. We're playing quarterback in the spring, and haven't had a lot of time there. Casey Washington, you know, who's probably our next best or one of our best wide receiver options, wasn't even with us. Didn't even know if he was going to be eligible until 2 weeks before the fall camp. You know, a tight end position in particular, Luke and DJ have made a lot of progress since we've gotten here. I think two guys that can be key factors in our offense as we continue to go forward. But I think just the basic execution offensively, from being execute the run game, block it, protect it, and run it, and then in the passing game to be able to protect it, block it, and make the decisions and make the throws and the catches have been something that we got to continue to improve.
Thank you, Bret.
Yep.
Hey, Brett, we saw Brandon, move back into that QB1 spot, when he came back from his first injury. Is it a similar procedure this time around?
Yeah, it's kind of a to be determined. The reason we did that is obviously for us as coaches to make the decision what gave us the best chance to have success that game that weekend. Obviously, Art came in and did some good things on Saturday, but when we get to the decision of who we're going to play or who we're going to start against, Penn State probably won't make that decision until we get closer to Tuesday preparation. We'll do some Penn State preparation this week, but it's more about getting our team better where we're at right now, and then we'll make the decision on who's going to start against Penn State probably that Tuesday, so that the players know going into the preparation on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday to get ready for Saturday.
Okay. Then sort of on the recruiting front, just have the last 7 weeks, as maybe you've gotten to know what this team is, affected maybe how you're looking to recruit in the 22, 3, 24 classes?
Well, we had a pretty significant group of committed kids before we started fall camp, right? Like based on what we knew we wanted to do, how we wanted to do it in state as we go forward. They passed new NCAA legislation last week that it gives us the opportunity to sign 7 more additional transfer players other than high school players, which is uncharted water. That's never been done before. It's something I was kind of banking on. I didn't know what the number was going to end at, but they give us 7 extra. So now you can actually bring 32 new people into the program, which for us as a program that, we wouldn't have been able to get to 85 scholarship players if that rule hadn't passed. So it's a tremendous advantage for us. But those 7 transfer players that can come in, whether they're from junior college, whether they're from the transfer portal or grad transfers, is kind of a work in progress. And then for us, we have a large number of super seniors that have to move on. They're done with their eligibility. But then there's another group of seniors that have a COVID year of eligibility left if they want to, if they factor into our plans here, but also some guys that maybe, haven't used all 4 games and that they can still have a redshirt year available is something that we still have to explore with a certain number of our guys on the roster that we currently have. So we had a big personnel meeting on Sunday. I had a lot of conversations Sunday and Monday when I was on the road. We'll have another big one this afternoon. It'll kind of give us a lay of the land. But really, after these next 3 games, when we go into that second bye week, we have to have a pretty good understanding of who's coming back and who's going to be moving on. But then there's the X factor of guys maybe that may leave the program that we don't know or don't think about right now, or potentially guys that could declare themselves for, the NFL draft that we aren't thinking that's their thought process right now. So the roster is a constant evolution. You have a baseline of what we're doing, but yeah, there's a work in progress every day from a recruiting standpoint on pure roster numbers.
Thank you.
Yep.
Brett, it says Andy, but it's Brett. Every player last year you said you welcomed back. Do you foresee doing that again?
Brett and I thought you'd go through a formational change there, like another name. I do. Last year, because of COVID, it presented a very unique opportunity for a coach to come in who didn't know his roster and invite everybody back, right? I just felt that was something that was important for us to try to maximize where we were. All those super seniors were going to be counted as pure bonuses, but that can't be the case moving forward. The NCAA has not allowed us to do that. What they've done is they've give everybody a COVID bonus year, but they didn't give the institutions or the programs the ability to maintain that. It's kind of, for lack of a better term, they've made a promise that they can't cash, right? Like, so it's frustrating, but they appease the seven roster limit to go bigger numbers, but it doesn't change the fact that by a certain date, we got to be back down to 85 scholarship players, which is a tremendous challenge.
And then one other thing, when you reflect back to 2013 when you were at Arkansas, are there things you're remembering that you did then to set yourself up for success in 2014 as you try to turn around the program, or is that in the past? You reflect on those things at all?
No, it's a great point. I think not only 2013, but, specifically in this conference, I was part of a transition when Hayden stepped down. We weren't really on the cusp of Iowa football at that time. When Hayden stepped down and Kirk came in, and that first year with Kirk, we went 1-11. The next year, I believe we won 3 games, and the next year we won 7. And then obviously they're at a position right now in college football that's pretty high level stuff. So like he used that. And then, when I transitioned to Kansas State, I was part of a transition with Coach Snyder that basically the whole defensive staff was new. So it wasn't a total program transition, but a lot of it. And then when I went to Wisconsin, to transition from being a defense coordinator to becoming a head coach and to change the roster, I changed basically the entire coaching staff. All of those years where there's transition, I use that quite a bit. Arkansas was a very unique situation. I do remember we didn't win a conference game, and then we beat 2 straight ranked teams back-to-back weeks. I believe we shut them out too, but like you could see it coming. My first year lost to a team by a pretty significant number, lopsided score, and the next year came back and had a chance. We lost them by 1 point, but it told me we were going in the right direction. A lot of close games that eventually, when that tide turned, it happened in a big way.
Do you feel that happening here? Like, how do you see those translating? You're playing close games, or is that similar to?
Well, I'm not so much into the score as more of what I see, right? Like I see our guys, even today, like with a practice, had some visitors at practice. People that know and understand football, like you just see things begin to happen, and you can feel they're coming. It's much to what I felt when I was a younger coach, when I was at Iowa, and the 1-11 year wasn't great, obviously, and then to win 3, but we kept getting in the ballpark, and then to have a 500 year, and then to break free the next year and qualify for the Orange Bowl. Like you just, it doesn't happen overnight. And then a lot of times it can be a key player, right? A key player that stays healthy, or you recruit, or a player that, hadn't been in the decision process for maybe a part of the season or an entire season. You add a new player in at a critical position that plays well. That's literally how things change overnight.
Andy, thank you.
Yep.
Thanks, Brett. Thanks, Brett. Appreciate it.
Appreciate it, man. Have a good week.
Thanks, Brett.